Travis Wayne Goodsell. There was a Liahona article on the change on the church website. Has nothing new on the church news yet. And it was of such a manner that I was wondering, has Nelson finally responded after last week's shock videos? So I had to do some research, and last year, August 14th, they announced that for January 2021 there were going to be some changes to the magazines. No longer the Ensign, it's now the Liahona, thus Liahona. And what I got my answer to is, yes, the church is still putting out print editions of the digital versions. And so it's not a response from Nelson. It was inspiration from me. And if you don't believe it, you see, the church is getting more views and they've got subscribers, and so Mormons are now receiving their magazines, and with this article on the church website, Mormons will now be referring to that in far greater numbers than my video, where let's see, do I still let's see, yeah, here it is. It was on Wednesday last week. LDS Relief Society Priesthood Offices, 17 March 1842. Notice I said priesthood offices. So not only was I inspired to do that video right before this month's issue of the Liahona with this particular article, From Sewing Society to Relief Society, I was also inspired to refer to the actual meeting where the Relief Society was organized. And in the video, I had not previously looked at the meeting talk. I instead did a pre-warm-up going over Romans 16. Remember, the Bible is not translated correctly. And I went over that the church in the footnotes did not have a Greek for servant under Phoebe, right there at the very beginning. It's deacon. And so I had no idea what was in the meeting. I just inspired to do a video on it. And what do you know? Joseph Smith gave them priesthood office as women and said, pattern of the priesthood, and to have the offices such as deacon, teacher, and Melchizedek offices as well. That's what the temple is for. And so I put in Oakes, who's infamous for denying women priesthood office, even though they claim we're a succession of the restored church of Jesus Christ from Joseph Smith. And yet, like blacks who were denied priesthood, so too were women. And so this, even though I'm not gonna get the views, I'll go over from this article. They had started a sewing society on March 1st of 1842, and then they communicated it with Joseph Smith. And Joseph Smith talks, it's quoted here, I quote from here: if they would meet with him the following week on March 17th, 1842, he would organize them in the pattern of the priesthood. Again, women are supposed to be in priesthood offices. And then, just to throw this in, I've talked about her before because ex-Mormons were doing videos on her and claiming that she's key evidence against Joseph Smith, that he was a polygamist and that he raped a 15-year-old, or she was 14, I think. No. Actually, she was married to another guy. Because that's why there's D.H. and Young. But she's the one who had healing powers, supposedly. All she did was do the washing and anointing. And if you're unfamiliar, because you're the rising generation of Mormons, the church used to do the washings naked. And over time, layers of clothing were added. When I started, it was just a shield over my naked body. Like, is it a poncho that you slip over your head, and drapes down on both sides, and it's wide enough so that the flaps cover up the sides. And that was somewhat of a new thing. And so I went over how Brigham Young and his 12 here in Utah would watch Zena do her healing sessions. Thus, they would have been naked when she was doing her healing. Yeah, Brigham Young is the deviant. Stay away from Joseph. It's a trap. So, yeah, I found that very interesting. And the reason why is because they have to have the printed versions out in July so that they can be mailed out at least a week in advance, depending on shipping times and all that. As Trump tried to sabotage our postal service, we're still suffering from those effects. Even though for the most part we're better, we still got that lunatic in charge of the postal service. Yeah, this, you can call it inspiration, I don't mind. And I don't know if this was what caused the prophets to have gone silent. That's what I thought it might have been, that this might have been their response. And so that video was what slammed them silent. But yeah, it was what triggered them because of what was done to my Free Joseph Smith from the Lies of the LDS Church video, specifically the thumbnail. So again, if you are Mormon, read it. Pattern of the priesthood. What do you think that means? Are you going to redefine it to justify denying women the priesthood? Are you a woman who says, oh, I really don't need the priesthood? Well, you don't really need the church then. Why are you in the church if you don't want all blessings? It's not supposed to be your husband is your master and you are the servant, not the deacon. You're supposed to work together as husband and wife to raise the family. You're not supposed to try to outdo each other in control and dominance for who's going to wear the pants. And take it from a guy who's had 2 failed marriages because the wives did not want to work together with their husband. So, there you have it. Ex-Mormons need to understand the church under Joseph was not what the church now is calling it. It is not what you are learning from hearsay journal reports from Zena and Brigham Young and all of his cronies that came with him to Salt Lake City. Zena was kidnapped. She was taken from her husband to be sealed to Brigham Young. She was never sealed to Joseph. She lied in the 1880s when her journal was written about that event. I did the video already. I'm not doing it again. So it's frustrating that ex-Mormons would rather believe the lie that is shocking rather than search and identify the truth to get rid of all the BS that the church is promoting, that the church has been doing. They framed and set Joseph up. And when it wouldn't work, because he kept getting out of jail and kept coming back. Remember, in 1838, that was the leadership crisis. Brigham Young and his Danites rose up and removed leaders from their positions of authority. Thomas B. Marsh was removed because of this so that Brigham can take over the Missionary 12. And as a result, Joseph got back from jail again, found out what happened, called Brigham Young Judas, saying that Thomas B. Marsh was a good man and had his brother, William Smith, restored to membership. Yeah, Brigham Young had him excommunicated, not just kicked out of the 12, which Joseph Smith also put him back in. If you're going to ignore this church history, then you are part of the problem that is destroying America with misinformation and disinformation. The church wants America destroyed so that they can rise up with Zion 2 of Brigham Young. And the slavery, and the polygamy, and the extortion, and the corruption, and the fraud. All the doctrines of Lucifer. Because that is the symbol that Brigham Young had ordered on the Nauvoo Temple and on the keystone of the Salt Lake Temple, which is the headquarters. We all know what a keystone is and what the symbol on it represents. And I'm sick and tired of not just Mormons in denial. I am fed up with ex-Mormons who refuse to acknowledge it, who would rather listen to those who trash talk Joseph and ignore and allow Brigham Young to go scot-free. It's got to stop.